My book is called My Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolt-Taylor. This is a book about the author's personal journey through a stroke that affected her left side of brain. This book talks about Jill's personal experience with a stroke and how it happens and what can be affected. Throughout this book, I found three main ideas. These include the difference between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, effects of a damaged left hemisphere, and support therapies and rest throughout recovery. The first big idea that Dr. Jill talked about in this book are the differences and similarities between the right and left hemisphere, and how they process information and interact with each other, and how they influence behavior. Our brain has two hemispheres, right and left. Our right hemisphere is specifically focused on the present moment. Dr. Jill describes it as moment by moment, our right mind creates a master collage of what this moment in time looks like, sounds like, tastes like, smells like, and feels like. Moments don't come and go in a rush, but are rather rich with sensations, thoughts, emotion, and other physiological responses, on page 29. Our right mind helps us remember specific moments and times. In our right mind, there is no timeline, rather just the present moment. The left hemisphere is quite different because it takes complex moments created by our right hemisphere and strings them together in timely succession. It organizes details into a linear fashion and helps us have a concept of time in the past, present, and the future. Although the hemispheres work differently, they also work together to do things like communicate. When you're saying a sentence, the words and the meaning of the words would be your left hemisphere, and nonverbal communication would be your right hemisphere. The research mentioned in the book about the brain's two hemisphere comes from Arthur Ladbroke Wigan, who in the 1800s witnessed an autopsy of a man who could walk, talk, read, write, and function normally, but only had one cerebral hemisphere. Wigan called this having half of a brain, but having a mind that functioned as a whole. If that's true, that means the people who have two hemispheres have two minds. He called this the duality of the mind theory. In the 1970s, there was another experiment done by Dr. Roger W. Sperry. In this experiment, Sperry surgically cut the fibrils of the corpus callosum, which is the connector between the two hemispheres, of people who experienced severe epileptic seizures. He then flashed images to one visual field. So for the left hemisphere, he would flash it on the right side, and they were asked to draw or describe what they saw. He hypothesized that the two hemispheres could act independently because a damaged corpus callosum would prevent information transfer. This experiment reveals that the left hemisphere controls language and the right hemisphere controls visualization. This would be because the images flashed to the left hemisphere, they would be able to describe what they saw but not draw it. Some weaknesses of the study was that it was a small population size, and there were also confounding variables like the fact that they've experienced epilepsy, seizures, and also effects of surgery that could have influenced their results of the use of both hemispheres. However, there also are some strengths, like he used real-world conditions of people who've experienced epilepsy and who already had their corpus callosum severed. This provides information from a real condition and is also ethically okay. After learning about this, I thought about the times where my right hemisphere was activated versus my left hemisphere. For example, when I'm in math and I use deductive reasoning, that would be my left hemisphere because I am making assumptions and I have reasoning. So math or reasoning or details would all be my left hemisphere, but in my right hemisphere, when I remember specific moments from my life that maybe were emotional, I remember specific parts of it, that would be my right hemisphere. My question is I wonder if people with a certain hemisphere damage are more functional than others. For example, people who have strokes that affect their right hemisphere versus their left hemisphere, I wonder which one has a better time adapting to society, or if it's easier to recover one of those hemispheres and not the other. My next big idea is the perception of the world without the left hemisphere and how it affects interactions and understandings in Jill's recovery. The type of stroke that Dr. Jill experienced was a severe hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of her brain due to undiagnosed AVM. Because of this, the left hemisphere of her brain was hurt. After the stroke, she describes her experience and how it was to readjust to the world through her right hemisphere and the challenges of interacting with the world with the damaged left hemisphere. When Dr. Jill lost contact with her left hemisphere, she described it as, imagine, if you will, what it would feel like to have each of your natural facilities systematically peeled away from your consciousness. First, imagine you lose your ability to make sense of the noise coming through your ears. You are not deaf, you simply hear all the sounds in chaos and noise. Second, remove your ability to see the defined forms of any object in your space. You are not blind, you simply cannot see three-dimensionally. She said this on page 78. She described it as a nirvana-type feeling. She felt fluid with the energy around her. She found it beautiful and peaceful, but she also knew that there were benefits to recovering, like interacting with the external world. Reading this gave me a lot of insight on what a stroke actually was. Before reading this book, I thought that when you have a stroke, you become brain dead, in a way. After reading this, I realized that I was wrong, that they still have a working brain, they just have to work to unlock it. I think society could benefit from this information. After learning about how people see the world through their right hemisphere, I think this could be beneficial because we have the option to slow down and look at things in the present, but we often don't use it because our left hemisphere is so dominant, and I wonder if that would help some people. My last big idea is that in recovery, Dr. Jill needed people to support and encourage her. She needed specific therapies to challenge her emotionally, physically, and cognitively, as well as the importance of sleep. Multiple times throughout the book, Dr. Jill talked about the importance of support during recovery. One of her biggest supporters was her mom. Her mom didn't make her feel stupid and motivated her to try to recover. This helped her a lot because recovery was hard. That leads into the second point, that Dr. Jill needed a lot of therapies to recover. These therapies included physical, occupational, speech, etc. She had to challenge herself mentally and physically. This is because the brain needs to create new routes to control body and perform functions that were lost during the stroke. These therapies were really hard for her. Even simple tasks such as puzzles challenged her a lot. However, things like this promote neuroplasticity, which focuses on rerouting signals and forming new neural pathways, activating both hemispheres to tackle certain tasks that will enhance her cognitive abilities and bring her close to recovery. She also stresses the importance of sleep during recovery. Sleep is an important factor of the brain healing itself. When she was awake, stimulation rapidly poured into her sensory systems, but when she was asleep, she was able to sort through all the new stimuli. This prevented her from getting overwhelmed and made recovery easier. One example of a therapy that Dr. Jill used was cognitive rehabilitation therapy. This is a common therapy used for stroke patients and because it helps improve cognitive abilities. In this book, we get to see a very specific experience of a cognitive rehabilitation therapy and how it helps a patient. That is Jill. The way this therapy was used through the book is through puzzles. First, she had to sort the pieces in the right side up, which was challenging at first because she didn't know what that was. After she figured out what that was, she had to find the pieces that had the edge, and again, that was challenging because she didn't know what that was. But throughout this activity, she was unlocking what that was and rebuilding those neural pathways. After she got that far, she was having trouble putting the pieces together, so her mom gave her a clue and said that she can use the colors to help her figure it out. Upon hearing this, she had a realization of color. Before that moment, she was not mentally aware of color. This therapy had helped her unlock old files in her mind and relearn information that she once knew. She saw immediate results with the realization of color and also long-term results as she was strengthening her neural pathways. If we treat this example as a case study, we can say that we've learned the benefits of cognitive rehabilitation therapy. However, because this is a case study, these results cannot be generalized. We cannot guarantee that every stroke victim will find this much success through this exercise. Some stroke victims could find this experience very hard and others could find it extremely easy. Depending on who's helping them and how much help they're getting, this could affect the results of the exercise. This means these results cannot be generalized to the entire stroke population. I think this information can be generalized to society because if society knows the importance of treating stroke victims kindly, encouraging them, and allowing them to rest, more people could recover smoothly. Throughout these big ideas in the book, I now look at stroke and stroke victims through a different lens. I feel like I have a better understanding of what they're going through and how it happens. I hope from this book I can educate other people about the brain's hemisphere and the role it plays in our lives, as well as how stroke victims recover and how we as supporters can help them.